Welcome to Fear Spiral. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you love stories that send a little shiver down your spine, you're in the right place. Today, we're rediving into a tale about a camera that sees more than just the world in front of it. Our story starts with Arash, a young photographer with an eye for the unique. You know, the type always searching for that one-of-a-kind shot, that perfect piece of gear that tells a story all on its own. One afternoon, while wandering through the city's old quarter, he stumbled upon a little antique shop tucked away on a cobblestone side street. The air inside was thick with the scent of old wood, dust, and forgotten memories. His eyes scanned shelves cluttered with tarnished silver and weathered leather until they landed on it, a beautiful old black hand-silver camera. It was a relic from another era, solid and heavy in his hands. He could already imagine the incredible moody portraits he could capture with it. As he brought it to the counter, the old shopkeeper, a man with eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 stories of his own, looked at him with a strange sense of concern. "I wouldn't buy that one if I were you," the old man said, his voice a low whisper. Arash, surprised, asked why not. The shopkeeper leaned in closer, his voice dropping even lower. "It's just talk, of course, but people say that when you look at the photos taken with this camera, the eyes of the people in them, they blink back at you." Arash just laughed. It was the perfect backstory for his new find. A haunted camera. What a fantastic conversation starter. He thought the old man was just trying to add a little theatrical flair to the sale. "I'll take my chances," Arash said with a grin, handing over the cash. He couldn't wait to get home and test it out. He had no idea that the old man's warning wasn't just a story. "Today, I've got a story that will send a shiver down your spine. One that makes you question what's real and what's hiding just behind the veil. It's about a photographer, let's call him Leo, who loved capturing candid moments, the raw essence of a person frozen in time. He believed his camera could see the soul. One evening he was hanging out with his good friend Anaya. The mood was perfect, the lighting just right. So he snapped a portrait of her, thinking nothing of it, just another photo for his collection. He went back to his dark room, excited to see the result. As the image slowly emerged in the chemical bath, a sense of unease began to creep over him. The photo was sharp, the details were perfect, but something was terribly, terribly wrong. Anaya's eyes, they were completely hollow, just dark, empty sockets staring back at him from the glossy paper. It was like looking into a void. It must be a glitch, he told himself, his heart pounding. A chemical smudge, a trick of the light. He tried to rationalize it, to brush off the cold dread that was spreading through his chest. But the image was seared into his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had captured something he wasn't supposed to see. He decided to call Anaya just to hear her voice, to reassure himself that everything was okay. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. No answer. He tried again. Straight to voicemail. Panic started to set in. This wasn't like her. He grabbed his keys and rushed over to her apartment, the haunting photograph feeling heavier and heavier in his pocket. He knocked on her door, calling her name. Silence. The door was unlocked. Pushing it open, he stepped inside, his breath catching in his throat. What he found in that apartment confirmed his deepest fears. The photo wasn't a glitch, it was a warning. The midnight air was heavy, thick with the kind of silence that makes you hear your own heartbeat. I was up late, hunched over my desk, sorting through the day's photos. Suddenly, the lamp above me flickered, casting long, dancing shadows across the room. I paused, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. A strange feeling, like a cold draft on a warm night, prickled the back of my neck. I tried to shake it off, blaming it on fatigue. My eyes were burning from staring at the screen for hours. Then, I heard it, a faint click. It was soft, almost imperceptible, but it was there. It sounded like a camera shutter. My gaze darted to the corner where my camera bag lay slumped against the wall. The sound came from there. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the wooden floor, the noise jarring in the otherwise silent room. Cautiously, I walked over and unzipped the bag. Inside, my digital camera sat nestled among the lenses. I picked it up, my thumb instinctively brushing against the playback button. The screen lit up, displaying the last photo I'd taken. It was a portrait of Anaya captured earlier that afternoon in the golden light of the setting sun. Her smile was radiant, her eyes wide and full of life, sparkling with a joy that seemed to leap right off the screen. I smiled, remembering the moment, but as I stared at the image, something felt off. The lamp flickered again, more violently this time, and in that split second of darkness, another click echoed from the camera in my hands. My heart hammered against my ribs. When the light returned, I looked down at the screen. It was the same photo of Anaya, The same smile, the same golden light, but her eyes were different. They were slightly closed, as if she were in the middle of a slow blink. A wave of cold dread washed over me. "That's impossible," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Photos don't blink." My hands started to shake. I scrolled back and forth, but the original photo was gone. All that remained was this new, impossible version. The girl in the picture looked back at me, her expression now holding a secret I couldn't comprehend. The silence of the room was no longer peaceful, it was listening, and I had the terrifying feeling that I wasn't alone. Curious, slightly tense music begins. Ever found a hidden gem at a flea market or an online auction? You know, that one-of-a-kind item that just calls to you. That's exactly what happened to Arash. He's a photographer, always hunting for vintage gear. One late night, scrolling through obscure forums, he spotted it, a beautifully preserved antique camera. The price was a steal. He clicked buy without a second thought. When it arrived, it felt different. He held it, a strange coldness seeping into his hands. It wasn't just old, it felt like it was holding secrets. Driven by an unshakable feeling, Arash started digging. He typed the camera's unique serial number into a search engine, expecting to find old manufacturing details or collector's notes. But what he found sent a shiver down his spine. The search results were flooded with old news articles and police reports. The camera, this exact camera, had once belonged to a renowned but enigmatic photographer named Niall Rout, and Niall Rout had vanished without a trace years ago. The deeper Arash dug, the darker the story became. Niall's final exhibition was infamous. It was a collection of haunting portraits. The subjects were all strangers, but they shared one unsettling feature: their eyes. Critics described them as blank, empty, utterly soulless. The police had a name for Niall Rout's disappearance: the Hollow case. They never figured out what happened to him, and they never found his most prized possession, his camera. Until now, Arash stared at the device sitting on his desk. The lens looked back at him like a dark, unblinking eye. He had stumbled upon more than just a rare find. He was holding the central piece of a chilling, unsolved mystery. What secrets had this camera captured? What happened to Niall Rout? And more importantly, what happened to the people in those photographs with the hollow eyes? The answers, he feared, were locked inside the very thing he now held in his hands. Have you ever taken a photo and later found something in it that just shouldn't be there? Something that makes your blood run cold? Well, that's exactly what happened to Arash. And his story is a chilling reminder that sometimes curiosity can open doors we can't close. Arash was an avid urban explorer. He loved the thrill of discovering forgotten places, the silence of abandoned buildings, the stories etched in dust and decay. One evening, he found himself in the derelict shell of the old Blackwood Sanatorium, a place with a notoriously dark history. Rumors of strange occurrences and ghostly apparitions clung to its crumbling walls like ivy. As dusk settled, casting long, eerie shadows across the decaying corridors, a strange impulse took hold of Arash. He'd always been a skeptic, documenting the decay, not the supernatural. But tonight, a little voice whispered, "What if?" Standing in the center of what was once the main ward, surrounded by rusted bed frames and the lingering scent of disinfectant, he decided to do something he'd never done before. He turned his camera on himself. He wasn't posing for a cool shot. He was testing a theory. He wanted to see if the camera could capture something his eyes couldn't. With a nervous breath, he raised the camera, framed his face against the gloomy backdrop, and clicked the shutter. The flash momentarily bleached the darkness, and then everything was quiet again. Shaking his head at his own foolishness, he packed up his gear and left, the mystery of the sanatorium seemingly unsolved. The next morning, Arash sat down with a cup of coffee to review his photo. He clicked through images of peeling paint and broken windows, the usual stuff. Then he got to the last one, the selfie. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary, just his own tense face staring back. But as his eyes adjusted, he saw it. Looming directly behind his shoulder was a figure. It was dark, tall, and unmistakably female, its form almost blending into the shadows. Its face was a horrifying blur, a smudge of darkness where features should have been. But the worst part, the part that made Arash drop his coffee mug, was its eyes. 2 points of brilliant, glowing white, staring directly into the lens. And as he stared, frozen in terror, he could have sworn one of them was about to blink. He hasn't slept with the lights off since. It begins with Anaya one day. She just stopped. The calls went unanswered. The texts remained unread. A wall of silence grew where her vibrant presence used to be. Days turned into a week, and the growing dread in her loved ones' hearts became a reality. Anaya was officially reported missing. For her boyfriend, Arush, the world had ground to a halt. His days were a blur of police stations and worried phone calls. His nights were spent staring at her pictures, trying to hold on to the memory of her smile. He had one favorite photo of her, taken on their last vacation. It sat on his nightstand, a small beacon of hope in the suffocating darkness. But one evening, as he picked it up, something was wrong. Terribly wrong. He blinked, rubbing his eyes, thinking it was just exhaustion playing tricks on him. But it wasn't. The photo had changed. Anaya's figure, once sharp and clear, now seemed translucent. The edge of her shoulder was blurred, fading into the pattern of the wallpaper behind her in the picture. It was as if she was becoming one with the wall, being slowly pulled into the flat surface of the photograph itself. He frantically checked other photos, but they were all normal. Only this one. Was he losing his mind? Was grief making him see things? Or was this a clue? A horrifying, impossible sign of where Anaya had gone. He felt a cold dread creep over him. The photo wasn't just a memory anymore, it was a prison. And as he watched, helpless, it seemed another sliver of her image had vanished into the background. Time was running out, and the key to finding her might be locked inside this terrifying, shifting photograph. That night it happened. My camera, the one I used for my late-night cityscapes, flickered to life on its own. The screen was a chaotic mess of static, but through the noise, a sound began to form. It was a whisper, distorted and guttural, like something was struggling to speak through the electronics. It said, "Each blink takes a soul inside." I froze, my heart pounding against my ribs. I ripped the battery out, my hands trembling, and threw it across the room. I tried to dismiss it, a short circuit, a radio interference, anything but what I thought I heard. But that was just the beginning. Now, I can't sleep. The moment my eyelids start to feel heavy, the moment I begin to drift off, another voice joins the first. It's closer, right beside my ear, a soft, chilling breath of a whisper. Don't blink. It's a constant, terrifying loop. Days blend into nights. My eyes burn, they're red and raw, but I can't close them. I douse them with water. I stare into bright lights. Anything to keep them open, because I'm terrified of what happens if I don't listen. I've covered the camera, locked it in a box, but the whispers are no longer coming from it. They're inside my head now. Every time I see my reflection, my eyes look sunken, haunted. Behind my own pupils, I swear I can see movement, something shifting in the darkness, waiting. The original whisper echoes in my mind. Each blink takes a soul inside. What does it mean? What soul? And the other voice, the one that's trying to warn me. Is it trying to save me? Or is it the thing waiting for me to fail? I'm so tired. It's getting harder and harder to fight it. My eyelids are so heavy. Just one blink. What would happen with just one little blink? I don't know how much longer I can last. The sound of a low, unsettling hum like an old refrigerator, mixed with faint, distorted whispering. I can feel it. A coldness spreading from the inside out. It started a week ago, just a flicker in the corner of my eye. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just stress, lack of sleep. But last night was different. I found this old photograph tucked away in a box of my grandfather's things. It was faded, sepia-toned, showing a group of people I didn't recognize. Except for one, in the back, slightly out of focus, was a woman. No face, just a dark, smudged oval where her features should be. A faceless woman in a white dress. The moment I saw her, a chill went down my spine that had nothing to do with the draft in this old house. I put the photo away, tried to forget about it, but you can't forget a feeling like that, the feeling of being watched. I haven't slept since. Every shadow seems to stretch, every creak of the floorboards sounds like a footstep. I keep seeing her, a flash of a white dress in a window's reflection, a tall, slender silhouette standing at the end of the hallway, gone when I blink. I even burned the photograph, thinking that would end it, but the smell of smoke, it lingers. It smells sweet, like burnt sugar, and something else, something metallic. I keep telling myself I'm imagining it, that my mind is playing tricks on me, but the feeling is getting stronger. The air is heavy, thick, it's hard to breathe. It's like she's here, in the room with me, all the time, waiting. Just now I made the mistake of looking in the mirror. I don't know why I did it. I knew I shouldn't. My eyes, they're not my own anymore. The blue is fading, washed out. My pupils are turning gray like ash. They look empty, lifeless, and behind me, in the reflection, she's there, the faceless woman from the photo. Her white dress is stained now, and she's standing so close I can almost feel her breath on my neck. Even though there's nothing but empty air behind me, the shadow in the mirror, it's grinning, and it's getting closer with every second that I can't tear my eyes away. I think she wants to trade places." I found it in a dusty corner of that old antique shop, tucked away beneath a pile of faded maps, a vintage camera, the kind with a big, round lens that looks like an eye. It felt heavy, not just in weight, but with a strange, humming energy. I brought it home, cleaned the dust off its leather-cased body, and aimed it at my own reflection in the mirror. I pressed the shutter, click. Nothing happened, no film, of course. But that night I woke up to a sound click, coming from the living room where I'd left the camera. I went to check. It was just sitting there on the coffee table, silent. I must have been dreaming. The next day I felt watched, an odd sensation, like a pair of unseen eyes following my every move. I'd catch flickers of movement in my peripheral vision, turn, and find nothing. The feeling was strongest near the camera. It was unsettling. Days turned into a week. The feeling of being watched grew into a constant oppressive weight. My reflection in mirrors started to look wrong, delayed. Sometimes, for a split second, it would grin when I wasn't smiling. I started avoiding mirrors, covering them up, but I couldn't escape the camera's lens. It was always there, that single, unblinking glass eye. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that it was the source. It had taken something from me that first day. My own home felt alien. The paranoia was suffocating. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get rid of it. I grabbed the camera, my hands shaking with a mixture of fear and rage. I raised it high above my head, ready to smash it against the floor, to shatter that cursed lens into 1,000 pieces. I brought it down with all my strength. But just before it hit the ground, there was a blinding flash of light. Click. The sound echoed in a sudden, deafening silence. The world dissolved around me now. There is only darkness, and this small, circular window. Through it, I can see my living room, exactly as I left it. The camera is lying on the floor, perfectly intact. And inside this glass prison, I see my own two eyes, staring out, blinking, slowly, waiting for someone else to pick it up. In a dusty corner of an old curiosity shop, tucked away behind stacks of forgotten books and faded postcards, sat a vintage camera. It wasn't particularly flashy, just a simple, leather-bound piece with a lens that seemed to hold a strange depth. One sunny afternoon, a young man named Arash, a passionate photographer, stumbled upon it. He was captivated. The shopkeeper, a man whose face was a roadmap of wrinkles, just nodded when Arash decided to buy it. "It has a way of capturing the soul," he'd said with a cryptic smile. Arash was ecstatic. He spent the entire day with his new treasure, wandering the city streets, snapping photos of everything that caught his eye. The bustling market, the laughing children, the serene sunset over the river. With each click of the shutter, he felt a deeper connection to the world through the viewfinder. That evening, as he reviewed his photos, he noticed something peculiar. The eyes of every person he had photographed looked empty, lifeless. He dismissed it as a trick of the light, a quirk of the old lens. But as the days turned into a week, a strange fatigue settled over Arash. His own eyes felt heavy, dry, as if he hadn't slept in years. He'd splash his face with cold water, but the gritty, tired feeling wouldn't go away. His friends started to comment on his appearance, saying he looked haunted, his gaze vacant. The world through his own eyes began to lose its color, becoming as dull and lifeless as the photos his camera produced. He couldn't bring himself to blink. The urge was gone, replaced by a constant, aching stare. Panicked, he returned the camera to the shop, leaving it on the counter without a word and fleeing into the street. His wide, unblinking eyes reflecting the city lights. Weeks later, a new customer, a bright-eyed teenager, excitedly picked up that same camera. The shopkeeper watched him, a familiar sigh escaping his lips. "Be careful with that one, kid," he murmured, his voice low. The last owner. He never blinked again. The young man, oblivious, just grinned and paid. As he walked out, the shopkeeper glanced back at the empty spot on the shelf. For just a moment, a faint, eerie light pulsed from within the camera's lens, and inside it, a pair of hollow, desperate Arash's eyes blinked once, before freezing wide open again. Some cameras don't capture faces, they capture souls. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. It really helps me out.